Hello, hello, and welcome to Beverly Arts Talk, a podcast brought to you by the Beverly Arts Center. This is your host, Matt McKinney. Today, we celebrate Black History Month with Chicago playwright Princess Hana L as she discusses her new one-act play, Being Sincere, a coming-of-age story about a middle-aged man named Sincere, Jr., who lives with his terminally ill grandmother. Sincere and his grandmother learn new lessons about love, change, and starting a new life when a mysterious homemaker comes to help. Black History Month virtual reading will premiere on Saturday, February 27th at 7:30 p.m. Being Sincere is rated R for mature content. Buy your tickets at www.beverlyartcenter.org. We'll hear a conversation about Being Sincere in one moment, but first, a little news on what else is going on at the BAC. Come sign up for our 3-week workshops with BAC for free starting on March 4th. Classes currently open for registration are Teeny Tot Hip Hop, a hybrid workshop for ages 5 to 7, Playday Workshop, a hybrid workshop for ages 5 to 8, Songbirds 1, an online workshop for ages 6 to 8, Ballet 2 Workshop, a hybrid workshop for ages 10 and up, and Drawing and Illustration, an online workshop for ages 13 to 18. Registration will be first come, first served. Then, come join us in spring for dance classes in lyrical contemporary, ballet for all ages, tap combo, and musical theater dance. Come explore our music workshops with piano, strings, guitar, music and movement, drum, and ukulele. Get your acting chops up with theater workshops and acting and musical theater for all ages, acting for adults. And coming up soon, come be our guest at the auditions for our student production, Beauty and the Beast, set to premiere at the end of August. And finally, find your inner visual artist in workshops like ceramics, glass fusing, drawing and illustration, acrylic painting, figure drawing, painting parties, and much, much more. All right, and now for a conversation with Princess Hana L. Anderson, the playwright of Being Sincere. Princess Hana, welcome. Thank you for coming to the show.
Right on. Thank you, Maddie.
Yeah. Really, I read the script. It's a great script. Characters are very vivid and very relatable. And so I want to know a little bit about the story, where it comes from, how, are these characters coming from people you know? Is the story something that you're, has happened to you in your life, or has happened to other people? Is it based on any sort of true stories, or do you want to share what it all comes from and a little on the story?
My it's not really, it's bits and pieces about people I've known, kind of about aging, that aging process and what that means and looks like, and how it's not really desirable to start new things, especially things completely outside of what you've been doing once you get to a certain age. So it's almost like a coming of age story for a middle-aged person. So yeah. That's kind of, sincere. And my aunt was taking care of my grandmother, who is now an ancestor. And I remember being over there, and she took really, really great care of her. She really did. And I just thought about a lot of different things, how you're caring for someone, the way you do it. That's not always as, simple, how things can be complicated, how you're utilizing your own time in the best version of yourself by giving up a lot of yourself to take care of somebody. So that was pulling from some of those elements, and watching how she really took great care of my grandmother. So it was a little bit of that, although it's definitely not about her or my grandmother. My grandmother was absolutely lovely. not so much Grammy, but yeah, so it was just thinking about that, and then just how someone had been in one place for just a long, long time on autopilot, working, and just, doing the same thing day in, day out, but then having this break where they get injured and they're like, hey, I really have this love, this thing that I've always loved to do. How about now, in this middle chapter of my life that I really, really start doing it. So again, it's like a coming of age story. And it's just started, these characters just started coming to me and telling me their story as I wrote it.
Let's talk about some of the themes here in Being Sincere. And you just kind of touched on some of those. You say it's coming of age, and I definitely see that. You have a 50-year-old or 49-year-old man who's a caretaker, right, for his elderly grandmother, and he seems to be going through his own sort of crisis in his own way of like what to do next.
Definitely,
he's got his passion, he's got his music, and he gets accepted into this music school, and he really wants to. He wants to pursue this, right? And he's had this job at the post office, and he said, for whatever reason, he's done with that. He wants to move on to his passion. So it comes down to sort of that whole practicality of in the safe way of living, which is to have your job that's maybe stable, and then the unknown, seeking, when you go to try and fulfill a life in the arts, it's a little bit risky,
Yeah.
Yeah. And he really seems to be going through that. And maybe he's been going through that for a while. What are your thoughts on that? Does it seem like, what is his relationship with Grammy? Do you think it's always kind of been this way, where Grammy's kind of the matriarch and very much telling Sincere, how to live his life, what he should do? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's a different relationship, because she's all he's ever known. She's pretty much been the one to take care of him because his mother could not. So she is the matriarch. She's a strong woman. She's always had to be a strong woman. And there's elements of, that she could have been kinder. She's not necessarily the pie making grandma, like with the sweet words and stuff. She's very direct, very strong, and she's also at the point where she is in, her life is ending, and she knows this. So she's trying to prepare him in a way that I don't know if she's ever prepared him before now, to really step up and be like, this is your building. This is, I'm not gonna be here anymore. That's what she's really trying to do. So I think the push and her being even harder is that much more amplified. And so he loves her, and he has a very strong sense of duty to her because she's always been the person there for him.
Right, exactly.
She raised him, yeah.
And the debate, the internal conflict he's dealing with is very much a familial support system versus her staying there for that support system and her elderly care, or maybe even end of life care. But also versus this crisis he's having with wanting to pursue his dreams. And that's a tough decision in anyone's life. I mean, it's not only just like leaving home, it's leaving the only person you've ever really known to care for you, who is also at a stage in their life that's very tough for them.
Yeah. It is very tough. And it could be seen as kind of part crisis, because he's at a certain age too, right? And and it's like, it's sexier to be in your, teenager or 20s or maybe even early 30s and be a starving artist, but not so cute when you're, 40s and 50s and that kind of stuff, And so I guess he is a little bit, in crisis to a degree, but I really still look at it more of a coming of age.
Yeah.
And I think that if he was younger, it really would be seen as a coming of age and not so much a crisis. So it's interesting you use that wordage, that language.
Yeah, I guess so. It's and by the way, this happens all the time where you get to be a certain age and you decide, I'm ready to move on to something else, and you've always wanted to do. So I definitely can see your idea of it being a coming of age, and he's finally ready to move on into, something else. But it seems this coming of age happens during a bit of a a huge decision he's going to have to make,
Yeah.
leaving, your elderly grandmother, or anyone that you love that you've been caring for, and have to move on to that next part of your life.
Yeah. And do I return back, to this job and the mendacity of that, and keep that going because I know that I'm familiar? Or do I say, no, this really is the time that I step out and really start pursuing, this thing that was just a hobby before, but really make it real? So it's a lot of that too. And so there's, I think the crisis really comes when the homemaker comes in and she kind of pushes that to another level of, crisis, or, the kind of conflict or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about Rita, the character of Rita. How would you describe Rita, and what what conflict does she bring to the story, in Sincere's life?
Yeah, Rita's not that much older than him, and she's just been a stone cold hustler. That's that's who she is. That's what she is. She knows how to use her, her energy, all of who she is, to get what she wants, and go different places. And she's got a kind of nomadic spirit. She doesn't talk about children or anything like that. So she's, not really bound in a way that he is bound. So she actually has a certain level of freedom that, he probably would aspire to have.
Right.
Because she can get up and go, come and go here, do this, start all over. And it really doesn't matter to her. No matter if it's, off of her own kind of, working a job, which she does that sometimes, or if it's boom, hustling.
Right. And it seems like Sincere really kind of falls for her.
Yeah.
And does Sincere maybe also, because she comes in to his life when he's also trying to make this big decision about going to school, it almost seems like he's almost kind of holding off on that decision because Rita comes into his life. He's like, well, I've got this other good thing going on here. Maybe I just hang out a little bit longer and kind of hold off on this decision. It seems like maybe he's been holding off on that decision of like going to school or going to pursue his music. And this, I know from just personal experience that this has happened to me before, where I'm about to get involved in something, a big decision, and then maybe I've met somebody and I'm suddenly blinded. I'm like, I'm going to hold off on that decision. I'm going to pursue this this relationship.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like it kind of came off that way just a little bit. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I certainly, this story was very relatable in just my own, the fact that I'm a musician, that
nice.
I lived with my grandma for a long time, and we had a lot of these exchanges, and she was a musician too. And so she was very much like, but she was also all about being, practical, finding jobs whenever, I can remember her coming in at, to my room at 10 in the morning and being like, are you looking for a job yet?
Get your butt up, man.
It was very much like that. And so I've lived this, sort of this life before with then, my grandmother, who's now in her 90s.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so, but I had to make those decisions too, and they're tough. So I very much relate to it on a personal level. So,
yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to the relationship between Rita and Sincere. Junior. But how is that relationship similar to him and Grammy, and how is it different? How would you describe sort of that contrast?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar in that, here it is, another strong woman that enters his life, that's trying to push him. But this push is in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Without giving too much of the story away, because we want you all to see the stage reading.
Mm-hmm.
But Grammy has it set in her mind that he needs to be stable, fiscally sound, and you know, that's really important. I mean, she comes from the Great Migration story, Grammy does, you know? So that whole, like, you know, coming over, getting a piece of property, having a job and being stable, it, you know, are very core values, you know? And then you have Rita that, you know, is strong, you know, she's liberated in many ways. And she sees, but you know, she sees him in a way that his grandmother and probably nobody else, maybe even himself, has never seen him. She see the artist in him. She says, like, you need to be on stage, man. That sounded good. You need to do it now. And he's just like, well, no, you know, I need to still, you know. And so she's really like, you know, F school, F that. If you're a musician, go on and do it. You know, so she has a certain liberation and risk that smells like freedom that he likes.
Yeah, and
so yeah, he's very stimulated by that sense with her. She's strong, but she sees him. That's really why he's attracted to her, you know, too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think she's pushing him and inspiring him, and he also he wants to be that that star for her. It seems like, and so I think he really. So he's deciding, and also he's kind of thinking about what she's saying. He's saying, yeah, I could go to music school. I could also go down to NOLA, Mississippi, and just learn from other musicians. And he's having that debate. And by the way, this is a debate that music students have all the time when they go to school.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to music school, and there are a lot of music students that drop out because they realize, you know, I just want to go down and play right now. And so I always wondered, maybe is he going back to school because he's also trying to put. We know he kind of gets a little stage fright, right? It seems like he might not be as confident in his abilities because he's not gone to, you know, quote unquote school. And
yeah, well, and it's also, you know, he can hide behind them structures too. Exactly. You know, in a way that, you know, if he just went out there, it really just is about you and that talent, right? So he's used to doing the right thing, the way it's supposed to be done. You know, his grandmother's like, you know, this is what you, so him like really being like, oh, I've got this thing here, you know, that this could be, you know, and she's like, well, you know, shit, you're almost 50 years old. Just go on and do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, those debates back and forth that you were talking about that a lot of musicians in college have, you know, it may even look different if you're 50 years old.
Absolutely.
That may be like, well, you know, hey, I didn't do this before. Let me go on and just try to, you know, so yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why she really pushes through a lot of that.
Yeah. And I don't want to give away the ending, but we'll just say I don't know. I don't want to give away the ending. I'm going to stop there. So
okay. Yes, you must come to the stage, the virtual reading.
So, all right. So, okay. Here's one thing. One thing I wanted to say. It feels like Sincere has always. So he's kind of put off decisions for a long time. What do you think? Is that? Would that be safe to say, or has he's just kind of been living the life he's been living and didn't and was okay with that, or was you know trying to just live?
Yeah, I mean he's an only child. He's a socially awkward man, you know, and he's just kind of been, you know, living at home with his grandmother and letting her lead his life. And now that he has gotten, you know, had time to, you know, he got sick, so he had to stop working. So there's reflection there. And then now she's kind of at her end of life kind of, you know, reality. And so his perspective about stuff like, damn, you know, without this woman here, I could really start, you know, without this job, you know, I can start thinking about this other thing that I really love. Without Grammy, you know, I can start being free. So, you know, a lot of things, and then this woman comes, you know, who in his mind is fine and second, he has not had, you know, much sexual, you know, history or interactions with women, you know, even at his age. So a lot of things are happening where he's really coming of age.
Yep.
I mean, it's later on, but he really is, you know?
Right. And that's it's certainly implied through the script that and I wonder, does that come from insecurity? Do you think that awkwardness? I mean, with when we're talking about even his playing on the guitar, he's afraid to really go in front of audiences, but he's fine behind the screen and maybe being in a classroom.
I mean, look at how his grandma treats him.
Yeah, right.
You know, so
Yeah.
you all just have to hear that dialogue.
Yes, absolutely.
But she's not the most affirming.
No. Nope. She's loving in her own way, but it's certainly, you can tell she wants what's best for him, but she definitely knows best, right? She knows best. So,
and you can only imagine if she's like this now, what she was like when she was younger.
Oh yeah, right. Very, very hilarious scenes at times, where, and it might even just be subtle, but it's like, you can tell just the way she's speaking with him. He's kind of rolling his eyes, and she's saying things that he kind of is like, oh my gosh, Grammy, that kind of, but it really comes off. They're very real characters. So
thank you.
Applaud you for that. I feel like the mantra for him, and this comes back to all musicians kind of, or artists, or anyone that's going into that's really weighing out that big decision to leave something you're doing for something else that might be riskier, but it's that tomorrow never comes until it's too late, and you wait and you're like, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll get on this tomorrow, and then suddenly you it's in the back of your head like, this could be too late, I've got to do it. And I feel like Sincere really comes to that reckoning. What do you think? I don't know if you want to go here, and you don't have to, but if we had a second act, because the first act play, one act play, if where would we go? Where could you see Sincere being?
Wow. I see him in, I don't know. I mean, I see him, hooking up with someone. I see him street performing and hooking up with some of the musicians, and, and just living his life finally.
Yeah.
It may not be as perfect as Grammy would like, or stable, because she was all about that stability, so I see him, having an apartment. I don't see him, owning a home or a condo, just because, I mean, he just really was having a hard time even dealing with, understanding that he had to take over this building, that Grammy has, the home and the building and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I just, I see him, being one of them guys, the street performing, get an apartment, finally start living. It may not look as pretty as what Grammy or somebody else would like, but he's happy. He's happy because he's living on his own terms, and he's finally playing and doing his thing. So that's where I see him going.
Yeah, I would love to see even more to these characters. I just especially Sincere, because you do very much relate and care about this character, and you want to know what happens afterward. I mean, you get an idea of where he's probably going to go. But it's I get the same feeling when I read like the James Joyce, The Dubliners, when you get like just a glimpse, to these characters' lives, and then it just ends suddenly.
Yeah. That's the thing with this particular play, being Sincere. Where he goes is left up to you. Where do you want him to go? And where you want him to go may be a reflection of yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's move on to a little bit how you guys are gonna do the show. I know AD couldn't make it today, who will be directing the reading, but have you had any experience with doing anything virtually during COVID-19, or
Oh Lord. Well, I telework. I work for the health department, so a lot of my meetings and stuff are primarily Zoom calls, team calls. A lot of work is very virtual now. And I think that just makes a lot of sense. Nobody is really doing groups and stuff like that. So my work specifically as an administrator for the health department has looked very, it's the phone calls, it's the conference calls, it's the Zoom and the virtual stuff. So yeah, there's that. And then I also have these, I have these morning cafes that I have like on my Facebook page, Adrian Sky, parentheses, Princess Hana. On Facebook, it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. And just for like between 20 and 30 minutes, I'm just like welcoming people saying, good morning, everybody. I'm playing instruments. I do DIY projects, or I just, converse. We had a Prince tribute last Friday. So just different, Black Heritage Month has been, different, and we light the candles, and it's really just a really positive way of starting the mornings. And plus I'm a morning person. So, and then there's so much for people who are in the afternoon and the evening, so much stuff, but there's not a whole lot of like support and positive energy for people starting their day, or at least I don't feel like there is. Right. So I have this like, we call Princess Hana's Morning Cafe.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great way to wake up and try to, get some inspiration. And it's what we all need, So are you working on other plays right now? You're saying that you have other works going on.
Yeah, I'm putting together some ideas and notes for another piece that I want to start. That I'm working on.
You want to discuss those, or just still kind of working away at what the details could be?
Well, just think about it as, because I'm still working on it, but just think about it as kind of like the Black lesbian version of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Okay, all right, I like that. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about that if you ever get that going on, and we'll have you back on the show. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, right on.
So now we brought up sort of COVID-19. I've this story was, when was this written? When was Being Sincere? I know you were still been kind of editing it, but did you start COVID-19?
Yeah. I started it around the fall of 2019. Around then is when I started like writing it. And then when I first wrote it, I said it just didn't seem complete. It seemed like something else needed to be added to it. And I'm not sure which version of it that you have, but I really, in like last year was the year that I really finalized it and really threw in the other elements and kind of like this world that we're living in now, and the pandemic. And I felt like, wow, that's what was missing, So bringing that in was real helpful. And I had some time to do that last year because everything was shut down. Couldn't really go anywhere. So I was like, well, let me finish this play.
Yeah. And I think actually that COVID-19 is not mentioned in the story, but if you think about it with COVID-19 being there, even, in the story somewhere, it also changes the fact that Sincere is considering leaving, and that his grandmother might be either going to a home or a caretaker. For the elderly, would say this happened before the vaccines are out or anything like that. There's a different gravity to that decision.
Absolutely.
Well, Princess Hana, this has been a really great conversation. Is there anything else we should know about Being Sincere? Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want to say, Saturday, was that February 27th at 7:30, right?
That's it, 7:30. Yep. So it should be Saturday, February 27th. Tickets are $8, $7 if you're a member. So please come to the Being Sincere Black History Month virtual reading, and we will hopefully see you there.
Yes.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in for this episode of Beverly Arts Talk. If you feel like being even a little bit generous, please donate to our website at www.beverlyartscenter.org. All donations are greatly, greatly appreciated and keep the arts alive to see another day. This has been your host, Matt McKinney. We'll see you next time. And as always, please be well and be safe.